It's Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. Thank you for joining us. Our guest is Steve Bradford. Mr. Bradford is a member of the California State Assembly and, fair to say, the newest member?
The newest member in the Assembly.
You've been there for about 3 months. How's it going?
It's going well. It's a different environment. But
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Absolutely, but I'm loving every minute of it.
Let's talk about one of your key goals. You've been there. You've hit the ground running. You are the chairman of the Select Committee on Procurement.
Yes.
And obviously, the state procures lots of services, $100 billion budget, give or take. But it seems as if small and medium-sized businesses can't get into the contracting process. What are you doing to change that?
First, we're going to do a series of hearings up and down the state, probably starting in San Diego, coming to LA, Central Valley, and then Northern California to bring not only government procurement officers, but major corporations, some of the utilities to the table, and have some discussion as to what their process is, and bring in small and local businesses, minority and women-owned businesses, and give them opportunity to ask tough questions and understand what that process is and how do they get that procurement opportunities.
But is it viable? I mean, is the bureaucracy so entrenched and the paperwork so dramatic that it's just not worth it?
No, I think it's a great opportunity, and the state alone does about $9 billion in procurement opportunities on an annual basis. So
Really?
When you talk about mid-sized, small businesses, even if they get a sliver of that, that
Sounds
means
good to me.
exactly. So it's worth it. Some of the times you hear the small businesses say when it requires bonding, and the level of bonding,
expensive.
exactly. Some of the times that's not worth it when they say I can't afford, say, a $10 million bond or a $1 billion bond, depending on what type of project they're doing. So from that standpoint, yeah.
Well, but can you, at a certain level, eliminate some of these barriers to small and medium-sized business? Because let's face it, I mean, small businesses are the engine of the California economy, and we got to somehow, some way, make it reasonable, rational, and viable for them to get some decent work out of the state.
Without a doubt, small businesses employ the largest share of
I think
people.
it's two-thirds.
Two-thirds of the people in the state and across this nation. And women-owned businesses make up about 16%. So we want to make sure that they are.
But what about eliminating those barriers? As a new member, can you eliminate those barriers to entry?
We hope so. I mean, and it's just about, most of the time, it's about knowing, it's about access. And a lot of times that information is not being disseminated down to the ground where people can say, aha, I know about it. Usually it's at the last minute. Take, for instance, the new light rail project that MTA is doing that the county supervisors have just approved. We had a hearing last week on that project, and one of the things I said to the PUC who are involved in that is that we have to bring small and medium-sized businesses to the table.
Let's talk about that, because I have to admit, I think it's a very exciting development. The Crenshaw Transit Corridor light rail has been approved. It's going to connect the Expo line and the Green line. 8.5 miles, $1.7 billion. Construction begins in 2012. Why are you a fan of the project?
Well, it runs through my district.
That helps.
It touches Hawthorne, Inglewood, a little bit of Westchester, and some of the unincorporated area that leads north.
But how do we avoid what we now see as the problems that have faced the Expo line? Lots of delays, lots of cost overruns. It was supposed to open in 2010. It's not going to happen. How do we make sure that that doesn't happen to the Crenshaw Transit Corridor?
Working closely with Supervisor Mark Ridley-Thomas and the MTA board, and taking a very proactive stance, which we're doing right now, from all facets, from the state level, from the local involvement, from the county, and making sure we just marshal that project.
Now, I know the supervisor wants to have as much of that line go underground.
Without a doubt.
As a way to avoid some of the delays, but it's more expensive.
Without a doubt.
So are you working with him to collect the funds from the feds or whatever it is to make that a
State
reality?
and federal funds are available for that project. And the real interesting part about it, the northern portion of that district, all of it's underground. As you move south, most of it wasn't originally designed to go underground. So it's more of a aesthetics, but it's more of a safety issue.
Clearly.
And we've seen what's happened over the last couple of years as the number of fatalities and accidents that happen all the time. So I think we want to do everything in our power to bring this thing underground.
Steve, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
For Local Edition, I'm Brad Pomerantz. Back to CNN HLN.